Higgins, I'm ready to get into this, all right? I've got a drink on my left, a book on my right, a book that reads right to left.
Yeah, that's a little confusing. All right, I think I got something.
Okay.
Snoop spins my head right round. Then we read a book and then spin our drink around. Is that fine?
That's good. It's not very Halloween themed.
Spooky book.
Oh, now it is. Very good.
Ooh.
Higgins, we're going to get into the second volume of Uzumaki today.
Yeah.
Now, if you could describe the second volume in only one word for the listeners, what would it be?
Shit show.
Welcome, everyone, to the Comixology Club, a podcast where I, Snoop Lynch, and my co-host, Higgins Stir.
Hey, that's me.
He's right there. Together, the two of us in the same room. We're going to hop on some microphones, and we're going to talk about a book we've read. We're going to talk about a drink that we be drinking, and we're friends, and that last part's really important, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, also Halloween special.
So far, our ever-present popularity hasn't gotten to our heads, and it hasn't broken up our friendship yet.
Yeah, but eventually,
I can't wait till that happens.
Can we be at your house when that happens? So like, there's no property damage done to my apartment.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, good. Because you own your house, but I don't want to lose my deposit if I can avoid it. Very good. Higgins, as I said at the beginning, we're going to talk about Uzumaki Volume 2. Not really important, but did you know that when we talked about the first volume, we went by a different name for our podcast?
Oh, yeah, we did.
We were the Comrades, Cocktails
and Comics.
and Boys Club. Yep, that's right. That's the one. Now we're the Comixology Club for various reasons, and this particular podcast is sponsored.
Oh, well, hell yeah, we are.
Hell yeah, we are, and hell yeah, we will continue to be until he wises up and takes it away from us. The person I'm talking about, of course, is Michael Lopez, who has a business that goes by the name of 008 Studios.
Yeah, where you can find them at 0-8studios.com.
Because you're getting really good at reciting that URL.
Yeah, I got to do it at the beginning of the podcast so I don't mess it up after I've, had a few beverages.
Hey, whatever your process is, man, I respect it. Now tell me, since you're so good at that URL, you must be visiting it on the daily. What do they do over there?
All right, so yeah, they help you do pretty much any multimedia stuff except for music. We're going to keep saying it because we messed up that one time. You can find comics, video games, books, that sort of stuff, art. You can find those things. People have made those things, and he can also help you put your things out into the ether.
That's right. And at the time of recording, I don't know how many of those comics and other things you mentioned are up there, but of course he does have a book that he wrote himself and had someone draw some pictures in that book. Yeah,
and we made an episode about that, you guys should listen to it. It's probably one of our best ones that we've ever made.
I mean, he's on it, so,
we
it's got to
put
be...
turmeric in the drink.
Oh, God, that was awful, wasn't it? Man.
And spices.
Why does he continue to sponsor us? I have no idea. But yes, you can visit Michael's website. I will leave a link for that in the description below. And if you are interested in buying stuff, he's got stuff you can buy.
There's
if you're
sweatshirts.
interested, oh my God, Higgins,
pins.
They're a hoodie.
Yeah, there's hoodies.
Oh my goodness, I'm gonna get a sweatshirt and a hoodie and wear them at the same time.
Yeah.
Someone say that's too hot, but
we live in Georgia, so
it's definitely too hot.
It's freezing.
But I'm gonna do it right now anyway.
Down here.
And if you're more on the creative side, as Higgins mentioned, you get in touch with Michael, message him, be like, hey, I've got an idea for a thing. Maybe you guys get to talking, do a little bit of collaborating.
And he'll make it. You can do anything.
You can do absolutely anything.
Your Paw Patrol fan fiction.
I don't know if you can do that.
Put that on the web, man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, put that on the web.
Okay.
Books or anything.
Okay, you can do all that stuff, maybe. But one thing you definitely can't do is
music.
You can't do music.
Yeah,
don't
make that music. Maybe someday, but he doesn't have the ear for it. He said.
He doesn't have the drive, the passion. He saves that for his other projects. And I respect it, just like we save our passion and drive for this podcast.
Yeah, talking about books that no one cares about.
That's right. And we're returning to a book that probably no one cares about except us, Uzumaki.
No, I can't say, we can't say that. Even people that I know that don't read comics or for sure don't read like manga, they have read this book. This is like peak. If you're going to read a manga, this is probably the one you read.
Especially around this time of year.
Yeah.
You know, Halloween season coming up.
God dang spooky.
That's right. And the last time we visited the story of Uzumaki, that took place in the town of Kuruza Chao. I probably said that differently on the prior episode. But
I think you nailed it this time.
Thanks, man. We left off on a bit of a downer, you know. I think a kid like fell into a car and then had a spring in his body.
Yeah, he was a Jack in the Box.
Yeah, it was
good.
Real spooky.
And I was like just itching to tell you what the next issue was about because it was so goddamn ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think that's going to kind of be the general consensus for this episode and this following volume that we're getting into today is the stakes are higher and the spirals are spiralier and crazy stuff happening. Even crazier than a kid with a spring in his body.
Yeah. No, things are getting out of hand, and these people should really leave this town.
God.
Or can they?
It's my biggest gripe about this book, Higgins, so far, and I mentioned it on the last episode. Is there a spell that keeps people from leaving this town? Because I'd be out after the first thing that happened where a dude like spiraled his tongue and then twisted his body or whatever. But for whatever reason, people are like, no, this is fine. We'll just keep going and see what happens. Doesn't answer my questions in this volume. Maybe the last volume next year.
Yeah.
But for right now, this is a little bit more of the same and also leading into what seems to be the big bad of the story.
Yeah, and honestly, like these next 7 issues that we read, because we decided to read 7. We said we might have read 6. We might have read 7. We decided 7.
Mm-hmm.
And these are, for the most part, a good bit spookier than even, I would say, more spooky than the last 7.
It definitely escalates.
Things are amping
as
up.
It goes. I think this first chapter we're jumping into, because the thing is, this is all, at this point, collected as one story. We're kind of doing our own broken up, volumes, as it were. So when you jump back in where we're at, which is, there's 7 chapters, as you mentioned. I'm going to list them all right now, and then we'll jump around, talk about whichever ones you want to, if that's okay.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Cool. All right. Of course, this is written and drawn by Junji Ito. We said that last time. We talked a little bit about the book and what's happening there, why it happens. He's scared of spirals, and now I am too. But these 7 chapters, he's going to take us into chapter 8, the snail. 9 is the black lighthouse. 10 is mosquitoes. 11, the umbilical cord. I've got some things to say about that one for sure. And then 12 is the storm, followed by 13, the house, and finally we end today on chapter 14, titled Butterflies.
Yeah.
Now, all of those words together don't really seem like they tie in, but he does some things here that I don't think he did in the first 7 chapters. In the first 7, it was more
just random stories that involved a spiral.
Yeah, like
they never really like lumped together, basically.
No, obviously there were kind of threads that carried over, but it was more the focus on, here's the monster of the week. Let's talk about what's going on with this kid or this man. This one, it starts out that way. The snail is very much contained for me, and it's kind of from that point on where it starts to, okay,
now we're getting into the nitty gritty of what's happening in this town, basically.
Yeah, because the threat is spreading, because the whole concept of the spiral and the power it brings is it functions like a disease, and that disease is now spreading throughout the town, its people, and the town itself. Like, I think, I don't remember all the chapters we read, but this chunk covers things happening to the town itself and how the spiral is changing it.
Yeah, by the end of it, like, for the most part, in the first, 7 we read, or honestly, the first, 8 or 9 that even come into, the ones we're reading now, only really Kyrie and Shuichi are even, a little bit worried about the fact that a spiral is taking over their town.
Mm-hmm.
And you can kind of tell, later on in, what we've read, that, some of the townspeople are something is affecting us now.
The problems are getting too big to ignore.
Yeah.
But even then, they still somehow manage to ignore some pretty big stuff.
Oh, yeah.
About in the middle of this is where I kind of just... It's not even really a problem I have with the writing, but you do have to suspend a lot of your disbelief.
Oh, yeah.
Because some of these things that are happening, it's a lot of body horror and physical transformations, but also sometimes... It's just people murdering people outright, and no one seems to really pay much attention to it.
What I'm assuming is like with you, what you said, like suspending disbelief. Like I think the spiral is affecting people's minds, which is causing like a majority of the town to not pay attention to the fact that this stuff's happening. That's the only thing that I can like put in my brain to make this make sense.
Yeah.
For these people to not like even remotely like just freak the hell out.
Yeah, and this volume addresses a lot of the issues I had prior, where even if you're one of the few people who's like, hey, this is all pretty messed up, let's get out of here, it's gotten to a point now where you physically can't leave the town.
Yeah.
And I like having that in there at least, where if you were going to get out, you should have done so last volume. Now you're just kind of trapped. And I think there is a lot of kind of subliminal stuff going on of people aren't leaving because the spiral is influencing their reactions to everything going on and just making it seem like, oh, this is a normal thing for our town. Let's just keep going. I wish there was a bit more going on with that to, I don't know. It's like
Shuichi's still just the only guy that seems to think this is a bad thing happening.
And there's no explanation so far as to why. Now, you've read all of this, and I don't want you to spoil anything because we'll finish it up next year. But they do some interesting things with his character where basically, even though he is the only sane one because he does want to leave the town, his mind is clearly broken.
Yeah, he's
so no one believes him.
Yeah.
So I think that's well done there, but there's just not enough considering everything that's happening. There's people turning into snails in the very beginning
stuff, and they're just like, we don't want to deal with this. What are they doing? Let's just put them in a cage.
And that's the most they react to it. And it's just, I want there to be something in the middle kind of leading up, because if there is going to be this big reveal of like, oh, there's a reason that no one's freaked out about the spiral and all the stuff happening is because of this. If there is going to be that reveal, which seems like is going to happen in some form, I don't think the payoff is going to be as good because there really wasn't any setup to that. It was just, hey, don't worry about this. Of course I'm going to worry about it. Because again, 3 people turned into weird snail people. Everyone's just like, yeah, we'll feed them every now and again and then we'll go to school. It's fine. No.
For sure the snail was like one of the most disgusting looking things. This was the one that I really wanted to tell you about because I remembered it.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I just remember this kid turned into a snail.
Yeah, you want to kind of set the scene for that particular chapter in case there's someone, which is most people listen to this because they're our friends and they like us and they don't read anything we read, but they like hearing us talk about it.
So like this kid like just was like showing up to school only when it rained. He was like super slow. He would show up to school late. And then he's just getting like progressively more nasty, and then eventually just crawls into class with like a shell on his back, just like dripping with water. And they're like, "Oh, he's just a snail now." He like climbs up the side of the building, and they're like, "God, we got to push this thing off with a broom."
They have to peel him off.
Yeah,
basically. Which I thought, good on that kid, I guess. You know, he cares about his attendance in school. Even though he's transforming into a weird snail man, he's like, no, I still got to make it to chemistry class.
Yeah, exactly.
And they kind of go down that route of, oh, he's a bully. He is a bully that messes with him even before he turns into a snail. And that guy gets his he
like touches him or something like that, which is what seems to be what makes them turn into it after the kid initially does.
Yeah, it's either like physical touch or maybe like a spore or something. They don't really go into why. I don't think you need to go into why it happens because they don't really go into why any of this happens. But the biggest thing, of course, is the visual showcase. Like you said, it's one of the most memorable chapters of the story so far because
it's real gross.
It's grotesque and you know what's coming based on the name of the chapter, but also just like, man, this kid's really slow and kind of slimy, almost like a snail. And then they all look at you. So you know it's coming. The reveal really isn't the exciting part. It's to see what happens to him. And I love Junji Ito's art style in a sense, and we've talked about it a bunch before, kind of this, it looks very mundane and normal. When I read a lot of manga and later watch it when it becomes anime, a whole big appeal of that genre and style is it's very exaggerated features. You don't really get that with normal people in this book. It's only after something horrible happens to them, but also you don't lose sight of that person in these transformations. When you see that kid and then later the bully transform,
you still see their face and stuff in like the snail features or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like his eye pokes out, but you still like, oh, that's that kid still.
Yeah, well, that was my favorite, probably one of my favorite visual bits of the transformation, where the eyes of the human
like turn into the snail like antennae.
Exactly. And you can see that. You can see their hair where it was. You can see their mouths even. It does get to a point, though, where they are just snail people, and you can't really make out what's what.
They're just big snails.
Yeah.
And then it tells us a little thing about snails that I didn't know, that they're hermaphrodites.
Oh, yeah, because
they're both males, and then they end up like making eggs together.
It's gross and beautiful all at the same time, yeah.
They just like suck on each other a little bit, and then there's snail eggs they dig out. And that's how the teacher turns into a snail. Yeah, he like steps on the eggs and then...
But that's the thing, is this book came out weekly when it was originally released. And so in that format, I think it does work really well as kind of this... We're just poking into this world, and you don't really have to worry about kind of the overall story. But now reading it as one collective volume, when you turn the next page and go to the next chapter, no one's talking about that anymore.
Yeah, now we're just on to the lighthouse.
And
basically,
you don't really know kind of how much time has passed. I do like that in this volume to kind of show how quickly the town is unraveling. It seems like less and less time has passed between these chapters and these events.
Oh, yeah.
Because it eventually gets to the point where the end of one chapter directly leads into the next. Yeah. But this was kind of a holdover of that original format of we're just going to do this like a week-to-week kind of basis, and once it's done, we're never going to mention it. But at the same time, maybe you should investigate the weird man that turned into a snail and what's going on there.
Hey man, they tried. They searched. They couldn't find him anymore.
They really just give up after a little bit, don't they? And they're like, oh, well, it's fine.
They're in the woods somewhere. They're snail people.
Yeah. It works really well just to read and just kind of be disturbed by the imagery. I know people that I couldn't show this book to based on that alone. It's just really well done. And this guy... I watched a few interviews today with Junji Ito just to see if I could find any more kind of about what made him do this story. A lot of it has to deal with the his idea of the spiral and how before it was used in anime and manga in particular is kind of like a more childlike form of expression. You'd see it on like the cheeks of characters and
like
stuff.
Naruto and stuff like that.
But for him, it was always just kind of like, no, this thing's kind of spooky and I want to know the mysteries of it. And a lot of the stories that you see into this are based off of events that happened in his life and things he studied. He had pet snails.
Yeah.
Just to study the spiral forms on their shells. And also he'd spin water around just to see what the whirlpool looks like to then influence his art. All that's there. But looking at this guy and listening to him, he seems like a normal, unassuming man who then just turns around and does this. And
yeah, and this is just one of his books too. He like is known as like the horror guy in the manga universe.
Yeah, he's the guy that you aspire to be.
Messed up stuff in his brain.
But I like that it's clearly not at least affecting him on the surface level, where he just seems like this normal dude who likes to draw creepy stuff, and he just has this kind of knack for it. But he's not a weird or creepy person. It's by all accounts, and his writing and his storytelling is pretty well paced. Like I said, I have those issues with just the fact that no one seems to care about what's going on. But I think you get away from those flaws the more into this part, because it does directly lead into those next chapters. Because the lighthouse is kind of the beginning of the end.
Oh yeah,
it seems, because by then everybody's pegged.
Everybody's getting affected by it.
Yeah,
and like with his art, he's probably the best that we've seen as far as show not tell stuff. Very little of like the dialogue and everything tells you like, oh, this is creepy stuff. You're just like slowly seeing like all this creepy stuff. Like specifically the lighthouse, people see the light and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I'm just walking home, and this lady's just like walking in circles, like in like really fast circles, and she's like, it's taking longer for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, if I saw that in like person, it's like, what's this lady doing? She's like, I'm just trying to walk home. It's for whatever reason, it's taken me a little longer than normal.
Yeah.
It's like that's pretty creepy. Like, what's wrong with her brain? Why is that happening?
And talking more about kind of art giving the context, that's a really great example of that chapter because everyone, including Kiri, sees that lighthouse when it starts to act up.
Yeah.
Even though it's been shut down for years and it has no power, every time at dusk, it has this big swirling light. And eventually, yeah, people do either disappear after going into the lighthouse or can't help but walk around in circles. They don't say it, but that only happens within a certain radius of you seeing that light. Because when Kiri originally sees it, they're farther away.
Oh, yeah.
And then when it gets down to the point where people start spinning around, they're kind of on the edge.
Just like looking at it.
Yeah, right.
Just like a whole crowd of people.
And it affects them in that way. But then, of course, you have people who, well, they went inside and they're not spinning around, but also no one's seen them. And then come to find out that it's emitting a heat and burning them inside that lighthouse. A lot of that you don't get with dialogue. You just pick up on it as you look at the pictures and read it. And I think that is his biggest strength, is he can tell so much without writing so little.
Yeah, no, like one of the quickest reads we've had, honestly, on the show. Like, I finished these 7 issues in like maybe 30 minutes.
Same, yeah.
But like the stories almost hit harder. The art does way more for this book than any other art has done in a comic. Normally, a lot of the time I'm reading the words and I'm trying to get the story through that, but like most of his story happens just because he drew it for me.
Yeah. I also think too, a lot of comics we've done in the past, while we've talked about some really great artists, it seems like almost every panel kind of is equal to the one before or after it. A lot of times in comics, panels are important, but you're kind of just turning the page waiting for, and this is more in kind of Western comics, you turn the page expecting that big splash page or reveal, and that's the image that you'll remember when you come back and think about it. But this, you don't really have a single image like that because almost every image in this is iconic in its own way. Obviously, you've got some really important ones, but it all blends together for a good reason, I think. So those are my gripes, I think, with it overall still. And I'm really hoping that when we come back around to it and we finish those last 6 or 7 chapters, it'll have all come together for me. But if it doesn't, I'm not saying I hate this book by any means.
It's a good story either way.
It's good, yeah. And I think it's a good idea to kind of show everyone else being brought into the weirdness and the creepiness. Because that's the biggest thing, is it's been just Kiri and Shuichi this whole time who have been like, hey, what's going on here? Now it's gotten to a point where everybody's starting to go,
hey, some weird stuff's happening.
Yeah. So much to the point where it does take a while. The town has to be destroyed for them to realize that.
Oh, yeah.
But now everyone's on board, and that leads into the last volume, which I'm super pumped about.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to hop us into talking about the drink so people can have something to get through all these super spooky stuff. And then I might ask you what your spookiest story was for you.
Perfect.
If that sounds good to you.
Sounds perfect, yeah.
Hey, man, go ahead and swig that drink down so I can make more for you.
Are you going to make another one?
Yeah, I'm going to make more because mine's all gone.
Just to tease a little bit before we go into the recipe, this is a lot of cinnamon.
Yeah.
And I'm just one boy. Oh, it's so sparkly, though. That's another tease.
It's a little sparkly.
It's very sparkly. So much cinnamon.
And we're back.
We're back with a new drink, Higgins.
Yeah, we are. And a fresh drink for everybody that's listening.
What? Can we afford that?
Yeah. No, we made a whole picture.
Oh, very good.
As big as Snoop's apartment.
We're just going to Uber the same picture to everyone's house who's listening. Oh, very good. I like that. What are they drinking then?
So this one's called the Poisoned Apple. It's extra spooky. This was one of the ones that I saw online that kind of had like a little bit of a swirl pattern to it. Mm-hmm. When I looked at it, so that kind of made sense, and then like it fell into the spooky cocktail category where, look kind of nice. Plus it's got apple cider in it, so it's got like a fall tinge to it. And I'll just tell everybody what it's got all in it.
Appreciate that.
So you got 3 parts. Two parts apple cider. 2 parts.
Do you need me to tell you? That way you can tell them?
Well, it was a third cup, which is 2 ounces.
Oh.
So 2 parts apple cider, 2 parts cranberry juice, which I almost forgot.
You didn't almost, you did forget.
Yeah.
Then we went and got it, so it all worked out.
1 part grenadine, 2 parts Fireball or any cinnamon whiskey that you have lying around.
So much cinnamon.
And then some gold glitter dust. That's edible.
Yeah, but not too much.
Please be edible. Yeah, not too much, because it's not technically supposed to be digested too much.
Yeah, it's got too much titanium dioxide.
But we put our life on the line for the podcast. We've had 7 of these.
And so far, we're all right.
Yeah, my teeth are minty fresh and glowing.
Yeah.
It's honestly, I like it. Snoop doesn't like cinnamon, but cinnamon's kind of the flavor of the season these days. So
the second round you made is much more glittery than the first round you made. Did you put too much titanium dioxide in this?
No, I think it just had glitter in it from the first batch, so it's like kind of just double amplified it basically.
Just a little bit of leftover glitter. I'm sure that's fine. Glitter, yeah. You look as pale as you always do, so I'm sure that's fine.
I'm not in the sunlight right now.
No, I mean, how could you, Higgins? It's fall. It's fall, y'all. All right. So yeah, pretty good. Not my particular drink of choice, but
you can't hardly taste the liquor, basically. So
it's very sweet.
It's very good for a party.
Yeah, for a certain audience, I think. Yeah. Like if you're over there drinking bourbons all day, every day, you definitely don't want any part of this, I think.
I might make a small batch for the Halloween party that we're both invited to at the end of the month.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like I don't even know how many times I have to make the stuff over and over again to make a like one of those like fun pitcher things that you like flip the little thing and it fills your glass up.
I don't, but I have a feeling you're going to come through and bring one of those, and I can't wait to see it. 100%. Yeah. And I think everyone can enjoy it at that party because as far as I know, no one's currently pregnant.
Thank goodness.
It's about time.
Yeah.
I mean, the last 2 years have been rough.
I can't wait to give the babies the drink.
Yeah, I mean, as long as they're not pregnant, then it'll be fine, I think. Yeah.
I'll make a virgin version of it.
Yeah, put it in a sippy cup.
Yeah.
Be on their way. Just don't put too much of that edible glitter in there, though.
Yeah.
Well, those kids are our future.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Well, not our future, but
that's true. Future. They're not going to do anything for us, are they? If anything, they might mess up our future, but that's okay. As long as our friends are happy. Stop getting pregnant. Quite honestly. Andy can't take much more pregnancy.
There it is.
There it is. Our monthly Andy shout out.
Yeah. One of these days he's gonna listen to a whole episode.
You didn't think I'd work it in, but I did. Now that all that's out of the way, maybe we can get into what you were mentioning earlier. Talk about our favorite chapters of this volume.
No, not our favorite.
Not our favorite.
Our spookiest. The ones we think are the scariest.
I mean,
because favorite and spookiest are 2 different things.
Like if you were in a dark alley, you wouldn't want to see this chapter.
If you were the main character in that story, which one would have been the most spookiest for you?
It's kind of a 2-parter.
If you had to choose between one issue, which would be your spookiest?
Okay, I see. Since you're putting those limitations on me, I'm going to have to say that the spookiest chapter for me would probably be, honestly, the umbilical cord.
Okay, well then let me go first because I'm going to be the mosquito.
Okay, perfect.
So now we get to talk about both of them. So these 2 parts have been the scariest of the whole book so far, in my opinion.
The first 14 chapters we read, yeah.
This has been like, I don't know if it's like Western horror or if it's just like the difference between Western and like Japanese horror or whatnot, but like these spark more horror in my eyes than any of the other chapters have so far.
Mm-hmm.
It almost gives us a monster to be scared of.
Well, that's the thing is, so chapters 10 and 11 make up Mosquitoes and the Umbilical Cord. They are one story, and I think what makes it as impactful and spooky as it is, it blends what we've seen up until this point. So we've gotten a mix of, people just going crazy, or someone turns into a snail man. Yeah. This is kind of a mix of that.
It's a lot of body
in the worst
horror.
way, yeah. So you have the setup for that is Kiri's burned after the events at the lighthouse, so she's sent to the hospital. And around the same time, a bunch of pregnant women, are hospitalized after being bitten by a bunch of mosquitoes. They're just swarming around outside.
Male mosquitoes.
Yeah.
In columns.
Mm-hmm. We learned a little bit. We learned a little bit about snails earlier. We learned a little bit about mosquitoes now.
Hey man, and
you probably already knew that.
I'm a bug scientist.
Yeah.
I can tell you the things they told you. Female mosquitoes are the ones that bite you for blood, and they only bite you for blood when they have eggs in them.
Yeah, to fertilize the eggs, I guess. Yeah,
and
didn't know that.
I can tell you that right now. I already knew that.
Yeah,
I didn't know that when I read it the first time, because I don't know if I was working. Or I had just started working there, so it was like one of those things where like I had learned it at work at the same time that I was reading this for the first time.
Life imitates art, art imitates life, so on and so on. Yeah.
Thank you, Junji Ito.
Because in this, the male mosquitoes, as part of a mating ritual, they spiral a lot in columns.
That's not a real thing.
True.
That's just for the book.
That's just to be extra spooky.
Yeah.
Okay, don't like that. So yes, they're attacked by the male mosquitoes, and they become what seems to be this weird mosquito pregnant woman
human hybrid
thing. Like, they don't look like mosquitoes, which is why they're unassuming
until the end of the second one, where they kind of have the long spindly tongue thing.
Yes, that's right.
Her cousin, Keiko.
So it has this whole, which hospitals, as we all know, even if you work with them,
scary in general.
Yeah, just terrifying places to be. No one wants to be at a hospital, especially at night,
especially for like long extended periods of time either.
God, it's awful. I mean, you have to wear that same tacky gown day in and day out. The breeze is nice, I imagine.
Yeah, but your cheeks are out always.
I mean, if you got good cheeks, who's complaining? That's all I'm going to say.
I got great cheeks.
Yeah, you do. So it goes into this like, well, people are being attacked and they've got holes in them, almost like they were bitten by mosquitoes. What's that about?
Oh, yeah.
And we put that down for a little bit. We have a bit of back and forth with Kiri and her cousin, who's also pregnant in the hospital. Keiko. Keiko's like, man, really love them mosquitoes, even though they put me in this hospital. I love them so much.
I have a weird twirly towel thing. You can just put that in the cabinet. Don't worry about that. We never found out what that was.
We do know what that is, actually. I picked it up. So going into later in the story.
Oh, I know what you're talking. Yeah.
So it turns out that the pregnant women who are now female mosquito women are in the middle of the night drilling holes into people with these weird hand drills and sucking out the blood out of them, which is then used to feed their unborn children. And that's what was in the towel thing. It's kind of hard to see at first because you're like, what's in that weird spirally towel?
No,
it's definitely that.
Okay, I didn't even think about that.
Because
that was before it even like really came up.
Exactly. And again, it's just a great example of, you go back, you look at that art, all the context you need is in that image.
Yeah, it's just
without a single
towel.
word. Yeah. So Kiri, thankfully, because she's the main character, doesn't get drilled to death.
God, she almost does like 5 times.
She has a few close calls this volume, but then you go into the next chapter, which is the umbilical cord. It's kind of a funny setup because basically she's ready to be released from the hospital, and then she has a weird freak out because those babies are clearly demon children.
God, they're talking.
Yeah, they're talking and they scream, and she freaks out and falls down the stairs, and they're like, now you gotta stay in the hospital for another day or whatever. And
you're such a klutz.
Yeah. And that is clearly just because we have to follow Kiri. She's the main character, and we need to see what else happens with these babies. It went in a way I didn't think, which is why I think it's the spookiest one, where basically these children are not adults, but they have intelligence, they can speak and whatever. Yeah. And all they want, though, is to be back in the womb.
It's so warm and cozy.
Yeah. And they've got this weird kind of hold over their moms and the doctor that convinces him to put the children back into the wombs via surgery.
There's a weird like medical thing where the doctor's talking about it, where he's like, the umbilical cord will keep growing back or something like that, or forming like an amniotic sac if left out in the open or something like that, until you cut it off, basically.
The thing is, he cuts them off, they grow back. It makes him go it makes him go crazy and basically say like, yeah, he ate one, and it's like, oh, I need to put him back in the womb because that's clearly what they want if they keep growing they even grow back the placenta. So we see the doctor perform surgery on Keiko and puts the child that she had back into the womb, and now she's some kind of weird mosquito
naked,
lady, like for real
up.
this time.
Yeah, mosquito lady. It's not, I guess it's not a horror thing, but it is a horror thing to me specifically. People do eat the placenta after they have kids sometimes.
I've heard that, yeah. They grill it and whatever, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know how I feel about that, but this is not the same thing technically.
No, I'm sure that was kind of what led into the premise of this idea, but it's...
He's probably like, that's pretty messed up.
That's the last chapter we have before the town gets wrecked, and you can clearly tell at the end of that chapter that things are just way out of hand and escalating to a point that everyone is affected by this, whatever is happening. The only thing about the hospital is, again, you turn the page into the next chapter, no one's saying anything about it, even though... It's just
the babies. Well, their cute babies got born.
Well, the cute babies are really cute, but also there's a mosquito woman who's sucking the blood out of people and weird placenta mushrooms that
they have like
others are addicted to.
Hand drills that they're like digging into people, and that's why it's scary.
It's never mentioned again what happens in this hospital, so I have to wonder.
Keiko even says that, like, she's like, no one ever like asks about it, no one ever says anything about it.
Yeah,
she mentions that in one of her like little monologues that she does.
It's got to be the spiral, just
messing with people's mind, and then like all of the people in the hospital, like all of the workers and all of the doctors, they're like, they want to eat those umbilical mushrooms and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Eat them right up, yum yum.
Apparently they're delicious.
Apparently, so.
I would have tried one.
Even though you just said you don't know how you feel about people doing it in real life.
Yeah,
these
well,
though,
I
you're
mean,
like,
I really like mushrooms, so if you put some good mushrooms on there, then it'd be pretty good.
Yeah. It's all kinds of creepy in all the best and worst ways. It kind of does, those two chapters alone do everything that we had seen up to this point of, you've got a woman who has a mosquito tongue who sucks the blood out of people, but also people are just crazy from the spiral. There's a bit in, I think, the umbilical cord chapter where Kiri asks why their the baby's stomachs are so bloated.
Oh, bulging, yeah.
Yeah, we find out later it's because they covered up the umbilical cord that's still there and the placenta that's still there.
Still growing the mushrooms and stuff like that.
So, but when she asked that, there's a panel of the children and they stop because they were kind of playful and laughing, and they just stop and their eyes open up really big and they look at her.
Super creepy. It's like she's caught on.
Yeah,
we got to get her.
It's terrifying, and that's what leads to her falling down the stairs, which again I think is really funny.
She saw. That was the scariest part to me. Like in the end of the mosquito one, is like she saw, and they all start chasing her with all the holes in their bodies and stuff like that.
And I will say that Junji Ito does cover up some of those inconsistencies with people, with characters in his writing, where when you go into the umbilical cord chapter, she's still in the hospital. There is a whole little bit about how no one believes her that these women did this, and also that all the bloodied gowns from the women and the hand drills are gone.
Yeah.
And that's really all I need. I wish it was more consistent with that kind of stuff of, hey, we did this so no one's really worrying about it. It's not a lot to do something like that, but it goes a long way for me to kind of keep with these characters as far as like, yeah, I believe that they would just kind of keep going about their day.
I do think that it like follows the trend of a lot of horror where it always seems to be that the main character notices all of these very creepy stuff in the movies, and then all of the other people in the town are like, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
like,
that's a good point.
We're just doing fun fall Halloween stuff. Like, there's not a killer around.
And then hand drill to the neck.
Yeah.
Right when that happens, yeah. No, that's a good point, actually. I didn't really think of it that way.
Basically, horror like just means like everybody else is the dumbest person you've ever met.
They really are, aren't they?
And then the main character's like, I've seen all of it.
Yeah. Do you think that I say this knowing you've read all the story, but do you think that it's a good idea to kind of go away from this horror element of it into the town's just wrecked and people have superpowers right now?
I think that's also like a pretty big horror trope where you get the initial thrill of everything. You see bad things happen, you see all of this happen, and then all of a sudden like you're faced with an unsurpassable evil, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that happens in a lot of horror stuff, and I think he's like tackles it like pretty well. Because even though like here we are, like we're seeing all of these things where like these kids are like blowing hurricanes with their like breath and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But for whatever reason that the house they're living in doesn't get broken down. It's like, even though that like all of this ridiculous evil is happening, there is still like a sign of like a brief glimmer of hope that these people might survive this.
Yeah. It's interesting, I think, to end where we ended, because it seems like right where we stopped is where we go into the third act of, okay, we're finally going to figure out what's going on with this town, because the town's in shambles. There's no reason to kind of do these Monster of the Week encounters anymore. We just need to see what started all this. And I think they've laid some pretty good seeds for that with Kiri, where she lives at. And I think a big thing that I didn't really pick up on at first, but I remembered you mentioning last episode, we talked about it, these row houses.
Yeah, they're bringing up the old row houses, and they've been there, and I think they're even set up in like a bit of a spiral to begin with.
Something like that, yeah. And her dad has a line in this in one of these stories where she asks him, hey, like, these didn't originally have electricity or running water. How old do you think they are? And he's like, I don't know, maybe the 19th century. So just that one little line makes me think that's how long this has been kind of building up to
slowly
this.
Going,
yes. Yeah. So I think that's, if it is true, that's a really solid setup.
The slow build that's like kind of like a spiral where, like, you know, it starts out really wide, and then by the time it gets to the center, it's like going very, very fast.
Yeah.
And I honestly, like, he's setting up the story to do that. Mm-hmm. We start with these little wimpy stories that are just like, oh, nothing really is affecting the town. And then as we get down to the end of the story, like, we're getting towards the center of the spiral where it is flowing quicker.
Mm-hmm. So the pacing is keeping up with the stories themselves. Yeah. I'd be interested, which I'll never know because I wasn't reading this when it came out, but I'd be interested to know kind of how people felt about this when it was being released, because I think it's easier to kind of take it as is in these chunks we're doing, as opposed to read this 30-page chapter, all right, wait a week, and I feel like you would maybe get tired of it. Obviously, the art's probably what's going to bring you back, but maybe that would be less enjoyable because you want to see the story progress.
I would maybe back in the day like agree with you, but I don't know if it's just because like how busy I am lately, but I've gotten more used to like just taking in media like one episode a week or something like that. Mm-hmm. I like a story that gives me like, oh, I can take one episode in, forget about it for a week, come back, and it doesn't take up enough of my time. It's like you never really forget the story, but it's like, oh, now I get this next part, and it's getting progressively scarier. The suspense like lingers longer. I don't know if it would like, we're reading it like back to back to back to back. Like you're seeing it progress, but you're not getting the, like, I don't know, the suspense of it really.
Yeah, you're kind of losing the impact of the individual chapters because it's like, well, this one's not as important to the story as say these two are or whatever. Yeah, I could definitely see that, and I could see maybe that's why it was formatted the way it was.
I think that's like what works well for like horror genres and stuff like that in the first place. It's like you have to build suspense, and you can't really do that if you just get your druthers like, oh, I flipped the page and now I see what happened next.
Yeah. I am glad that we are taking it in parts, because I thought about going and just reading to the end and then like, okay, I'll talk about it at a different time, but I just want to know what's happening. But I also decided against that because it is a bit of a shock each time to, even in these parts that we've broken them up into, is, oh, like some big stuff happened in this stretch. But it gives me something to look forward to next year when we finish it off. It's
kind of nice to like have us like having both like separate takes on this thing, because like it is hard to talk about like this stuff knowing what happens in the future. Mm-hmm. Because I know the big payoff at the end, and you're sitting like just sitting in the dark kind of thing.
Yeah.
At the end of the last one, I really wanted to tell you about the snail one because I thought it was the most ridiculous thing I've seen.
It is ridiculous, comic. Yeah. But I'm glad you didn't tell me about that, because a big part of the story, each chapter, even the story as a whole, is seeing it for the first time, not knowing anything going in. I knew that this story existed. I knew that it involved some weird spiral stuff. That was it. I didn't know any of the details. So going into each of these chapters, the biggest clue you get is the name of the chapter itself. When you start it, like the mosquito, that doesn't tell me anything except there's probably mosquitoes involved.
Yeah, and then like honestly, the most like what's it said talking about the titles and stuff like that. The last one we read is called The Butterfly, and like I would have never guessed what that chapter was going to be about given that title.
No, yeah, me either.
But it made sense once you get to it. You get the butterfly effect, where it's like a flap of a single wing causes a hurricane in a different country or something like that.
And this is in more of a literal sense, basically, yeah. And like you said, you don't know that going in, but I'm glad I didn't know that going in because it wouldn't really work as well as it does, I think. Because a big part of horror is the surprise.
The not knowing is what makes it scary.
Yeah.
And he does a great job of like bringing that in as slow as possible.
Yeah, I think so.
To drag out that suspense and that horror.
All right.
I think that's all of it.
Yeah.
I mean,
so.
do you want to give it a
now,
do you want to give it a rating, or you just want to sit on this until the next year and give it a rating once we're done?
Did we give the first half a rating?
I think we did.
Let's give the second half a rating then.
All right.
Yeah. Just the second half though. Don't even worry about the first half.
I don't even remember what we read in the first half.
We talked about it, the boy in the box spring thing or whatever,
right. This one is better, so I don't remember what I gave it as last time, but if I say something less than last time, just know that I meant to give it something more than last time. I'm gonna give it, I don't know, about 80 swirly warts, I think.
Ooh. We didn't talk about the swirly warts. They're gross.
That's all right. I like to leave something to be desired for the...
Very good.
People should read this.
They should read this.
This is, along with Saga and all the things we've read in the past weeks, we've been hitting a lot of, like, big centerpieces of comics.
Yeah.
This is one of them.
For sure, especially in the manga world.
Yeah.
I think I'm enjoying the kind of picking up the pace of the story and just shit hitting the fan, hurricanes falling into lakes and whatever. So for that reason, I am going to give this a rating of 78 mosquito bites made by women with hand drills.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot of swirly bites.
It is a lot of swirly bites, but I liked every one of them.
Banana nut, banana nut, banana nut. Readings for squares.
Put a lot of head bob into that one this time, yeah. So it means you're excited about this next segment, which is Readings for Squares. That's a segment where Higgins, as you know, we talk about something that's not book related.
Yeah.
No pictures,
like
no words.
Yeah, forget that.
Yeah. I mean, it could be moving pictures, though. Yeah. That's fine.
I listen to a lot of audio fiction podcasts. At my work, I have a lot of time to just like pop in a headphone and listen while I work. Like a lot of the stuff I do, I can just like do without thinking about.
Just one headphone?
Just one headphone, because just so people can like, you know, I can still hear what they have to say to me if they say something to me.
Okay.
I can just like pop it out and like be like, oh, what'd you say?
A lot of people can't handle that. It's either both or nothing.
I like one, and it also helps me like if one ear, like after that ear gets tired, like I can switch to the other ear. And it doesn't hurt as bad.
Question, are you using AirPods?
I'm using AirPods.
Okay, good. Because that's too much cable to deal with, you know? You get that caught on like a beaker.
Oh, yeah.
I assume you use?
No, I don't use any beakers.
Hey, just let me have the fantasy of you in a lab coat using beakers, all right?
All right.
And then tell me what you're leading into with these podcast fictional type things.
So it's like old radio shows. Like they've become really popular as of late, podcasts in general, but like audio fiction stories, they have big actors in them here lately and everything like this. This doesn't have that one. But it's a horror podcast called Parkdale Haunt. It's these people in Canada. There's like 2 or 3 people. They decided to make a little like horror story. This one girl, she gets a house inherited to her by her biological family that she barely knows. And then, of course, it's haunted. She slowly gets possessed by like this house. And like a lot of crazy stuff happens. It's on its 3rd season now. Actually just started in September. It's very spooky. Like there's possessions, there's blood sacrifices, there's cults, there's health and wellness podcasts involved in the middle of it.
Like in the story?
In the story, like she gets possessed by a person, and in order to collect followers, she starts to do health and wellness blogs to get more followers into her like cult.
That's fun.
Which is kind of funny because it's like health and wellness, like podcasts and stuff like that, is a cult to begin with.
Don't tell my girlfriend that.
But no, it's super neat, and like honestly, like I listen to a lot of these things. Like I half the time I'm sitting in a room by myself just sorting mosquitoes, so I need something to pass the time with. So I listen to a lot of these stories. There's Marvel ones, there's all sorts of stuff, but this one, a lot of them are horror for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is one of the few ones that has actually like freaked me out while I was like listening to it.
Yeah.
And I figured for spooky season, I could tell people about that.
Okay.
And then maybe give these people that probably already are doing pretty well more listeners.
Shout out, yeah.
Yeah, maybe we'll even like link it in the podcast notes.
If you send it to me, I can.
I'll send it to you.
Yeah. Okay. That's not really it's not really been my thing. I listen to
it's not anybody's thing. I try to get everybody into it, and nobody like quite like gets it, but like I think these things lend themselves to people that do have like my sort of like job where they do sit by themselves for a long period of time or something like that.
Yeah, you don't have
Or, like,
you don't necessarily
driving a
have the time to like at work to watch a show.
Yeah.
Because presumably you are working.
Yeah.
So but you want noise basically.
Yeah, I need
that you can
noise.
also occasionally pay attention to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like a lot of the stuff that I'm doing, which I mean I'm doing work, but it's monotonous.
Yeah.
And this breaks the monotony.
Honestly, I would probably do it more often if I had a job where, because I sit at a computer a lot for my job, but I have to pay attention to what I'm looking at on the computer. You don't luckily have to worry as much about something like that.
It's TV shows, but without having to watch a screen, which I can't do while I'm doing my other stuff.
I don't know. I think for whatever reason, there's just a mental block with me and fictional type podcasts. I can listen to a podcast all day about just like something like this, or we're going to talk about how the wrapper of a Hershey's bar is made. Like I like that kind of dumb little stuff, just learning. Fictional podcast though, even though the production quality is usually 10 times more complex and impressive, it just doesn't keep my attention for whatever reason. And
that, like honestly, it's a newer form of like media for sure, because like up until recently people weren't even doing it, but here lately there's like bigger and better podcast networks that are like even getting like big names, like what's it, Jillian Jacobs from
X-Files?
No, not her. Like the annoying blonde-haired girl in Community.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's in this one that's like a not a horror one, but it's like a drama about like medical stuff. And then there's like other ones with like Rami Malek have been in one, and like just random people. Like Tessa Thompson was in this one about this thing called the left-right game.
Yeah.
That's like if you go left down the street and the next street you cross, you take a right, left, and then like this horror stuff starts happening. Mm-hmm. More and more people are getting like drawn into this world, and it's like a new way to get stories to people.
Yeah. It's just like audiobooks. New way to experience content. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will say think that's it. For whatever reason, I'm more okay with actors doing that than just doing their own pal around podcast.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know, obviously if you're an actor and you just want to do a podcast, you have that right, but at the same time,
you're still in our spots.
Stay off our, you're already rich and famous and beautiful. Stay off our turf. But you know, at least with the fictional side of things, it's like, oh, you're acting, which is a thing that you do. I can't do that. You do that. That's fine. Because I did listen to the Wolverine podcast way back in the day, the first one with
there's so many.
The guy that I don't know if he still does. His name's Richard Armitage, I think. Yeah, he was Thorin in the Hobbit movies.
Okay,
that very handsome dwarf man.
There's so many Marvel ones.
Yeah,
now and they're all pretty good.
Yeah, there's like a new Batman one out as well that apparently is really good.
They are doing this like Wastelander series that's after like V-Day. I don't know if you know anything about that. It's where like the top villains in the Marvel universe, like the Red Mask, is that right? Captain America's like one of Captain America's main villains.
Now that you've said Red Mask, that's all I can think of. Even though I know it's not
something like that.
Red Skull.
Red Skull, yeah, and like Doctor Doom and like Zemo and stuff like that. They kill a majority of like the superheroes, and you're seeing like this like well into the future, kind of like a Logan.
That
like
sounds
thing.
Like Old Man Logan. That's the premise of that. Yeah.
So they got a lot of stuff like that too.
Yeah, which
there's a bunch of them. Like just dive deep, you'll find something you like.
It's a good point. That is one good thing about podcasts is there's a podcast out there for everyone, even if it's the only one you like. That could be someone who listens to this. This could be the only podcast they ever like.
Yeah.
I don't know what's wrong with them, but
yeah, thank goodness they're there.
Thank goodness we have them here. And thank goodness that you told us about that. I think that's good things to shout out and bring attention to. If you do send me that link, Higgins, I will put it in our description thing. Just make sure to give me some details about the name of it, and I'll do a little magic there. Or you could do it. You can do that now.
Yeah,
bring you in on the whole managing front. Fold. Yeah, happy to have you. Now, if you don't mind, I'd like to take a second and tell you about a thing I've been doing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's not much. I decided I wanted to talk about a show I caught up on called Link Click.
I haven't heard of that.
It's on Crunchyroll.
Okay.
Pretty good. Basically, there's only 8 episodes that are dubbed out. There's probably a little more subbed, but I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
I don't mind it, but I just don't have time for it. So as far as the English dub goes, there's 8 episodes out, and it's time travel with pictures and 2 dudes just being bros.
Oh, that sounds good.
I really like it. It's kind of this client of the week type thing where someone will come in and they're like, hey, I heard that your business can help me with this thing that went wrong in my past. Maybe look into that. And they're like, do you have a picture around that time of the event? And they do. And then they go in the past. How it works is one guy looks at the picture and he can see what happened in that time period with those people.
Yeah.
So he knows the exact events of how they happened. Then the other guy goes into the body of the person that took the picture, and he has a kind of finite time to affect certain things, but he can't change the past overall because otherwise things go screwy.
So is this Minority Report meets Quantum Leap?
Kinda. It's I think what makes it interesting is they maybe put a bit too much as far as rules for time travel.
Yeah.
But that adds stakes to it because like one rule is you only get one shot with one picture.
Okay.
So if you want to, like in instances,
disappears.
I just want, well, no, just you can't use it again.
Okay.
Basically. So they can't change certain events. Those are like the critical nodes is what they call them.
Yeah,
and it's like you can do certain little minor changes. I just watched an episode, and I won't spoil everything, but basically a kid was kidnapped, and then you cut forward 3 years in the present where they approach these guys about it.
Okay.
They can't keep that kid from getting kidnapped. That has to happen because it's such a major point in time. If they were to change that, which they could, but if they were to do it, it would potentially ruin the entire timeline as they know it.
Okay.
So it's their job in this instance to figure out, okay, who took this kid? Because we don't know who took this kid. They never found out who took him. And figure out where he went. That way, hopefully, when you come back to the present, aka the future, the kid will turn back up. So it doesn't take away the time that the kid was missing or the things that happened to the parents that lost him, but it gives them that chance to reunite. So I find that element of it pretty fun, and also it kind of adds a lot of tension because, like I said, they only get one shot. Sometimes they even mess it up. So if they mess it up in one instance, I can't go back to that moment anymore. Is there another picture close to that moment where I can maybe jump into and get the information I need? And so by having those kind of rules set in stone, don't break these or else, it's got a lot of that mixed in with some murder mystery stuff. And I enjoy kind of there's more somber moments of when this guy goes back in time, he becomes the person that took the picture, which a lot of times is the person that approached them originally. And so he gets into their head and he feels what they feel at that moment, and he kind of empathizes with them. And it's different for the guy who just looks at the photo and can kind of see the moment, because he's not having to do that. He's kind of the straight-laced guy. He's, no, you have to do this. No, you have to follow this exactly as is. Whereas the one guy who's experiencing these moments feels this person's pain and their anguish and wants to help them more. It's not that the other guy doesn't want to help them, but he knows you have to stick to these rules or else it's going to cause more problems than it fixes. So It's that kind of back and forth between the two of them as it's happening, and you're like, well, I just want everyone to be okay, but sometimes it's not okay.
That makes sense. I always like it when, like, I'm a big science fiction guy, and I always like it that, like, every new person that tries to tackle, like, time travel has their own set of rules and regulations of how this is supposed to work.
Mm-hmm.
Because the more and more you think of it, the more you realize, like, yeah, if people did have this, it would, like, just, like, screw the heck out of everything, like everything everybody lives, basically.
Constantly, too, yeah. Like, there wouldn't be a concrete timeline, because this person would change this event, which would then ripple, and then this other person would do the same thing, and it would be absolute chaos, yeah. And as far as I know, they're the only two that can do this.
Yeah.
And
I'm sure that'll change, but
I kind of hope it doesn't, but also I don't really know what the plans for this long term. It just started. But I really enjoy it, and I really enjoy the dynamic between the two guys. There's also a girl that she's the boss manager person that finds them clients. She gets a little bit of play as the series goes on. Also, one of the best songs of an anime I've ever heard. It's real catchy.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Well, speaking of a mixture of the two things we just talked about, audio fiction and time travel, there's this one I listened to called WOE.BEGONE. That's got like 86 episodes or something like that.
Yeah.
And like it's just like the epitome of what could go wrong if you like give people the ability to do time travel and stuff.
Just wouldn't be any good.
There's like multiple versions of the same character, and like they're consolidating characters and all the sorts of random stuff like that, and it's just a shit show.
But you're loving the ride.
No, I love it. I've listened, like, I think I like started when they had like 15 episodes out, and I've listened every week, like for however many weeks that is.
That's more than like a few weeks.
Yeah,
probably.
No, it's one of my biggest commitments.
Some would say your biggest commitment in life in general. Yeah.
Yeah, besides my job at this point.
Yeah. Nice. Well, that's good. That one's called what?
WOE.BEGONE.
WOE.BEGONE?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
WOE.BEGONE.
WOE.BEGONE.
Yeah.
Okay.
All capitals. Well, I'll send you both those.
You can send me all these links.
Yeah.
Hope I can keep up with it.
There's so many good ones.
Good.
Nobody listens to them. I would love to talk to you guys about any of them.
That's what this whole section's about. Is just you trying to convince other people to watch things so you could talk to them about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Good. Well, Higgins, if they wanted to talk to you, they could.
Oh yeah, they could.
I'm gonna naturally bring us to the end of the show.
What a segue.
Yeah. Thanks. I'm gonna hop right off it and let you do your thing now.
All right. Yeah, I'll sweep up. You can talk to us on a lot of different things. I'm on the Twitter and Instagram. Twitter is Mike Higgins 93, and Instagram is JSturm93. You can find Snoop at both of those, kind of at Snoop_Lynch. Instagram's the better one for that.
Same username
for both of them.
Yeah, same tag.
And
is that what it's called? A tag?
A handle?
Handle. Yeah, that's right. I mean, you really got a handle on that.
Yeah, exactly. Nailed it. What a play on words.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you can find both of us at our email, which is comixologyclub@gmail.com.
Hey.
We don't have the on that one, right?
I don't think so. You got it right though.
Yeah. Without any flubs or
exactly.
anything like that.
Good job.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
We would love to get an email. We don't get emails. You guys hate us. We're gonna mope in our
sad little corner.
bedrooms. We would love to talk to you guys. Just anything. Like, tell us what comics you want us to read. We have a pretty fleshed out schedule for the next few months, but like, honestly, like, we'll read anything you guys send in to us as soon as we can.
Yeah, if you give us any form of attention, we will jump.
And yeah, if you want to talk to us about any of our prior episodes, we'll maybe even add a new section, and you can help me come up with a new theme song.
No, I'm not going to do that.
No, not you. I'm talking to the listeners right now.
Thank God. I've already got enough on my plate, Higgins.
Yeah, no, okay. I'm the theme song guy, but I'm giving them creative liberties, potentially.
You want to bring them into the fold.
Yeah.
I like that. As you said, we have an extensive back catalog, and
yeah, we're sitting at like 42 now.
That's right.
After this one drops.
Mm-hmm. We've got a lot of comics and episodes to cover from here as well. We're going to do an episode next month. We've been talking back and forth, and I think we've sort of arrived at a book or two.
Yeah,
so,
we have a couple different ideas, just depending on how things work out for us.
That's absolutely right. So, as you know, Higgins, we've had a couple guests here and there in our lifetime, in our podcast life. And one of them is Josh Sawyer.
Yes.
He's done an Umbrella Academy. He's done A Jupiter's Legacy.
Yes.
We're going to see if we can get him back for the Umbrella Academy Volume 2, which has got some kind of subtitle.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I haven't thought that far. I just know that the third season has come out on Netflix. And it seemed like a thing that we could potentially do.
You know we could. And
I love bringing back guests.
That's right. Josh and I have already watched it. It's pretty good. Yeah.
I've watched some of it so far.
It's got confirmed for a 4th and final season.
Nice.
So that's good. Usually Netflix doesn't do that.
Yeah.
They just cancel it right when the hype is high. Yeah. So we're going to try and do that if he's available. If he's not available, we're going to do a Black Panther story. One of the ones where Shuri becomes Black Panther because... Nice. That's more than likely happening based off that new trailer that just came out. You seen that new trailer?
No, I haven't. I don't watch trailers.
God, Higgins, this looks so good. Namor's in it.
Yeah.
And guess what?
What?
I'm going to go ahead and spoil it for you because the trailer's out. He's got his little wing feet, and they fly.
He's like that guy from Greek mythology.
Yeah, he flutters like a little hummingbird.
Hermes.
He's so good.
Yeah.
When I saw it, I was like, oh, they did it. They finally did it. I didn't think they would do it, but look at his dumb little wing feet.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty pumped. And a lot of people are not as pumped because that girl's going to be Black Panther, and
women can't be superheroes.
It's not that, I don't think. I think that it was her little stint of, I don't like the vaccine, and I maybe also don't like trans people.
I didn't know that.
But you know what? I was talking to Andy about this the other day. You can like a person for their acting and separate them from their other stuff.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure her acting's fine, but we'll see, won't we?
We'll see.
Yeah. All that said, thank you, Higgins, for joining me on our podcast that we did.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you. Say you're welcome.
You're welcome.
That's all I wanted. A little manners go a long way, Higgins.
Yeah.
All right? And I hope you join me next time, and maybe Josh next time if he's here, when we talk about another book. But until then, I'm going to say cheers, guys. That's what I say. Wait, hold on. I'm going to take a sip of this. God, that's a lot of cinnamon. I'm going to say cheers, guys. And Higgins, you got something on your mind. What do you want to say?
And I'll say, I'll see you guys next time. I was spinning around in a circle when I said that.
Oh, okay.
I was
it sounded like you were like dozing
and
off.
And a spooky thing.
Yeah, it sounded like you were dozing off, like you were really sleepy. That's fine too.
Yeah.
Well, either way, I'm glad. Bye.
See ya.